Happy World Autism Awareness Month, and today being the day that globally we celebrate this awareness. Greetings to you guys. Welcome to Neuro Conversations. Globally, 1 out of 31 children have this condition called autism. And I'd like to define this autism. Autism is actually a condition, neurodevelopmental condition that affects children, and usually how this manifests is usually in their behavior, in their communication, and a lot of times on their social interactions. And with me today, by the way, my name is Margaret Kimani. I'm a mom to an autistic child called Amani. But today is a very special day because I am here with me in studio with a very special guest. And welcome to studio.
Thank you, Maggie. My name is Evelyn Gitimu. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm also a parent to an autistic child, a boy. He's 9 years old.
Amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on studio. And I'm very excited to hear this story from another parent's or a caregiver's perspective. And today in studio, this Neuro Conversations, which is a very exciting podcast, we shall be discussing some of the early symptoms. Because I realize even for me, it's been a very big, long journey. A lot of us caregivers and parents, we've gone through a lot of challenges in detecting these early signs. Maybe you can share some of the signs, how you knew, especially how did you know that your child was different in your parenting journey?
Okay, thank you, Maggie. So for me, when my boy was around, say, a year old, I noticed that he had delayed milestones.
Okay.
And this is speaking,
Okay.
we are talking walking,
Wow.
even crawling. Let's not even talk walking. Even crawling was delayed.
Wow.
And at times, when you spoke to him, he could not look you in the eye. And he would also have delayed responses, like say you'd call him and I don't want to say it's ignoring, but he will not respond to you immediately. So there's this talk in society that, boys are slow,
Oh, tell me about that.
Girls are very fast. So I was like, he's just slow. He's a boy. This is one of those signs. And when he clocked 1 year, he was crawling, but he wasn't walking. And he was not even standing and supporting himself on surfaces. Wow. And you see, this is around the same time where parents buy, let's say, a walker so that their children can learn to walk. So as I was thinking about shopping for one, a relative told me, you stop stressing. He's fine. He's a boy. Yeah, he will walk at some point. So that for me was the issue. Second, another thing that I noticed, he was very particular when it came to shaving his head. Okay. He had some sensitivity issues. Okay. Another sensitivity issue was brushing his teeth. He was very sensitive. He would not want you to put anything on his mouth. Wow. He also had sensitivity when it came to some foods, like he would not touch some foods. He had a liking for white food, like rice, spaghetti, maybe ugali, white pancakes, anything that was white. That's what he was attracted to. So there's a shaving, there's a sensitivity with his body, and there's a sensitivity with food, sensitivity with light. He will not stay in a room where it was very bright. I can only imagine. Yes, and then also he had an aversion to loud noises. So every time something was loud, even if it is the TV or the radio at home, he would block his ears. Wow. So those were the initial signs. But because I didn't understand what autism was, I figured maybe this is what boys go through, So yeah, those were the first signs.
Oh, amazing! Thank you so much for sharing. And I think, to be honest, I don't know if you can share with us. Is he your firstborn? Because I realize for us parents, when you had not had a kid before, sometimes even you can go with what the community tells you, like, oh, boys are slow, oh, don't stress about this kid,
Yes.
they'll be fine. Oh, you're stressing, especially moms, eh?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
maybe you can share your experience.
Ivan is actually my second born.
Okay.
I have a girl who's
Okay.
older.
Okay.
She's older by around 4 years.
Okay.
So for me, I had gone through the parenting journey, but I'd not gone through the autism journey.
Correct.
So the subtle signs were pegged to be boy signs. He's slow.
I know.
Boys are slow to speak. Boys are slow to walk. Boys are slow in basically most things. So yes, I was a parent before, but the signs that I was seeing in him, they were pegged to be delay signs that are mostly seen in boys.
Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. I'm very curious to know, when is that moment, if you can remember, when is that moment that you can say for sure you felt that, as much as the society, many people have been telling you, don't, chill, don't stress, your kid is, boys are slower than girls in developmental stages. When is that moment that for sure you knew that something here is not, there gotta be something different about your son?
Okay. So I know it is said that you shouldn't compare your child with anyone else's.
True.
But, as a mother, comparison comes automatically. You want to know, like, development-wise.
Yes.
Because there's a chart where it's said by this age, a child should have done this.
Crawling.
Yes, this age, a child should have achieved this. So the first time I intuitively knew something is wrong is when maybe in church, when you go to church and there's creche.
Wow.
and you have children of the same age as your son who are doing things that he's not able to do.
Yes.
So you could hear them calling out to mommy.
Wow.
You could see them going after toys,
Yes.
things like those.
Yeah.
So my boy wasn't calling out to me.
Okay.
And in the creche or anywhere else, even at home, he was very particular with the type of toys he would play with. So it's a form of fixation. So that's
Yeah.
when I knew, because most boys will play with cars, they will play with,
Or
whatever
break
is
them.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. But now, he'd only play with trains. So that's when I first discovered that he has a fixation.
Wow.
Also, let's say when we went to the barber, you'd see small children his age sit down and get shaved. But for him, it was a screaming affair. Every time his hair is cut.
Almost like you're forcing him to it.
It's actually forcing.
Yeah.
Because he has to be held down for his hair to be cut. So then I noticed there's something different. And then we went to school.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yes. Before I even mention school,
Yes.
he was not potty trained by the age of 2.5.
Okay.
And by that age, most children are potty trained. So we were still doing diapers. And when we got to school, he stood out because all the other children in the same age group were potty trained, Fine, you'd have accidents once. It happens,
Yeah.
even with other
normal
children,
kids,
with more normal children. But for him, it was full-time diapers because he was not, he could not, number one, he was not verbal to say when he wants to go. And yes, so he was not verbal to say he wants to go, and he also didn't have the knowledge of how to go about it when it came to using the washroom.
Yeah.
So yes, so we went to school, and I remember the owner of the school, who's trained in special needs. I think it was like the second interaction. And I know to date, she keeps telling me, I should not have said that, but I am glad she did, because she brought it out.
In fact, we need to celebrate such people who
Yes,
are bold enough to walk
point
the
it
journey
out
with us
and to point it out. Because I remember she asked me, have you had him assessed? And I was like, for what? So now I feel, internally, I feel like she's pointing out those things that I found odd.
Oh, blind corners for you.
Yes.
You're thinking, oh, I was told my boys are slow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she asked me, have you had your boy assessed? And I go like, for what? And she says, autism. And I'm like, what's autism?
Wow.
Yes, I actually didn't know. It's amazing the level of ignorance I had. And I know this probably resonates with a lot of people,
Yes.
a lot of parents,
Yes.
that unless you've gone through it, you will not even know that
Yes.
it
Exists
it
in
does
the first
exist.
place.
Yes.
Yes.
So she said, "Have you had him assessed for autism?" And to be very honest, my initial response was to get offended,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
I didn't verbalize it, but I was like, "How dare she?
Like,
How
is
dare
she a
she?
doctor? You almost
Yeah,
like, are you a
is she a
doctor?
doctor?
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Why are you asking me, my son, to be
Yes,
evaluated?"
yes, yes.
So I stepped out of there,
A bit offended. I must
offended,
think so.
actually, yes,
Yes.
but I didn't vocalize it, I didn't verbalize it. So I went home and things are settled, and we went back to our normal routine,
Yes.
until she called me one day and told me, "Mama Ivan, I'm calling you based on how Ivan interacts in school.
Okay.
And I know I brought this up earlier, but I'd honestly want you to have him assessed."
Wow.
And I brushed it off. I was like, yeah, I remember. You told
Yeah,
me. I will see to it.
Wow.
And that was end of story. So we continue going to school. We are not verbal. We are not
Okay.
potty trained.
Wow.
So
Interaction is limited.
interaction is very limited. Actually, he's in school. He's not interacting with the children in the playground.
Wow.
So for me, it's like, you know what? I know I'm paying school fees for him to know how to live around other children apart from his sister.
Wow.
But that is as far as it went.
Wow.
And then, because of the sensitivity with his teeth, he develops dental issues.
Wow.
Yeah, because there are corners, even when you're forcing brushing,
Yes.
you cannot reach.
Because it's sensitive.
Very sensitive.
Yes.
So even when you do it, you just brush over, technically, juju too, and you move on.
Wow.
So we had to seek assistance from a dentist, a pediatrician dentist. So we walk in, and the doctor finds us seated. And the first 2 minutes when she started speaking to him, she looked over to me and asked me, "Is he autistic?"
Wow. And you're thinking, how do you know
And
these
then I'm like,
things?
what's wrong with people?
Like,
Why are they
yes.
ganged up against my child?
And where are they coding my daughter?
Yes.
When what is this autism?
And that's
first of all?
that's the second time I'm hearing about it.
Wow.
But now, because now this is not school, this is a medical issue now.
Wow.
So I go like, no, I have not. What's autism? And she says, you see the way he's not verbal, the way he can't express himself, the sensitivity with his teeth. Even when he's on the dentist chair and the light comes, he bolts up because he can't stand the light hitting his face. Yes, and then she's like, I can't touch him until we get an official diagnosis, because then I know how to proceed with him.
Wow.
So that was the start of my journey.
Thank you, thank you. You know, I am so intrigued because you are bringing back, I feel like this is a therapy session for me, because similar to my journey with, I don't know if at some point I have not shared, but I shared at one point we brought my daughter to the dentist. We were boxed, 3 of us, adults, the doctor, the dentist rather, the nurse, and an assistant.
As you tried to hold her down?
Yes, because
Okay.
of the sensory overload. So maybe for our viewers, one of the signs of autism, and I'm glad you brought that up, and it's very, I mean, my heart goes to a lot of parents who are dealing with this condition, because sometimes sometimes the signs are quite a bit, and especially the sensory overload. I can see that your child and my child has similar.
Okay.
Touching her hair, brushing, blow dry is like going to the moon and coming back alive.
Okay.
Secondly, brushing, I can also see that, overload. I know in one of the podcasts, we'll be bringing a doctor to explain to you guys in layman terms. But one of the biggest signs for us parents we see is that the kids cannot handle a lot of sensory issues. You know, they're very sensitive, especially teeth, ENT. Nose, ears, eyes, and especially the teeth is an issue, but not all kids. Like we say, the spectrum, it ranges from one child to the other, so you cannot, again, stereotype and, make it across. Thank you for sharing. I know some of this information is a lot, even for you, when you remember, like, what? How dare you call my kid autistic?
Yes.
Like, who told you? Like, I've not, it's unsolicited sometimes information.
Advice. Yes. Information. Yes. Yes.
But
yes.
I thank God that out here there are people who look out for our kids. Maybe one of the other thing that I would want you to share is, how was your journey, like the society, how in general, how was it? Because let's be honest, we live in an African setting, and there's already that perception
Yes.
of this condition. People feeling like, I'll give you an example. In church, a lot of times my daughter could not sit down. And I remember people look at her, they can see this is a big girl. She's not a little toddler.
Yes.
And I remember one of the guests, the hosts, what do they call the ushers, saying, "Mom, just talk to your kid. She'll be fine. She can sit down and listen to the service." So maybe share with you how has it been, the journey, the the society, and how, maybe briefly, how has your journey been?
Has it been?
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up that church thing because, fine, I know you said it's a spectrum, and it is a spectrum because it will manifest differently in different individuals.
Correct.
Yes. So, for my son, it was, number one, the conversations, even at home, even with relatives. Like, an adult addresses him and he will not address them back, or he will not respond.
Even hello, a simple hello.
Even a hello.
Those days.
Or he'd walk into a room and ignore everyone.
Wow.
Until like after a certain period where he's now settled, his mind is calm, and then now he'll start saying, oh, so-and-so is in this room. But at the moment where he walks in, he will not talk to anyone. Even if you greet him, he will not respond back. He will, even when you sit him down to have a conversation, he will not look you in the eye.
Eye contact.
Yes, there's no
one
eye
of the
contact.
symptoms.
Yes. So there was a bit of, the perception was that maybe this boy is undisciplined or rude,
Snobbish.
Yes, snobbish. Social settings. Now, this is away from home. Social settings. You will go, let's say, to the supermarket, and he's excited and he wants to pick everything that he wants out of the shelf, and or even want to open it and start eating it where he is. Or maybe because he's also not very, maybe because he's clumsy, because of, his motor skills, he'll end up dropping something, and you'll find maybe an attendant saying, what's wrong with your child,
Yeah. Can they clean after themselves?
Yes, or why are you
Can
allowing
they
this
calm
child?
themselves down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or when, even when they get excited, their volume goes up. Like, even to date, you walk into a supermarket with my son, for him, this is good news because he knows he's going to walk out of there with treats. So every time you're in a supermarket, his volume goes up. Mom, I want this. Mom, it's not like a normal child. Yes. And if you said no, the tantrums. And a stranger will look at you, or he'll look at your boy having tantrums, and
Especially
think,
the mothers.
yes,
Yeah,
and think,
you have such a spoiled
you have
child.
such a spoiled child. How can you spoil your child to this level? You see? Let's talk the school situation.
Oh boy.
Because from the word go, maybe you've gone and you've not had an official diagnosis. So it's either intuition or guesswork or whatever it is. So you do not end up sourcing for a school where maybe they have teachers who are trained or who are aware of this condition. So you find that either the teachers are very curt with your child, they're shouting at him all over, they're wondering why he can't write, why is he so slow, why is he not potty trained yet, So I'd say it's 360 wherever it is you are going. Even if you're going to a restaurant, he will pick at food, or he will walk over to wherever he's not even supposed to go. Maybe you're out shopping, or even at a doctor's, he will leave you seated and go behind there, or even walk into places he's not supposed to walk. And bottom line, everyone will be there thinking, this child is so spoiled. This child has no manners, So until you've walked that journey and what the condition comes with, it's very difficult to understand from the word go.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, Eva. This is purely, I honestly, I am very grateful that you can share this with us, because you see the goal here at Neuro Conversations is to, as we share, there's a parent out here who has no clue. They have seen these signs, just like yourself. They have seen these signs. They're just thinking, let me not stress, my kid will be fine. Eventually, they grow out of it. Yes. And sometimes I feel that also the diagnosis, sometimes it's quite a journey. I know you'll share with us, but when I look at the statistics and just to know that 1 out of 24 kids in Kenya have this condition, it's quite concerning for me.
Yes.
Now, you spoke about when you were sharing about your journey with the doctor, with your sensitivity, your son's sensitivity. You shared about the dentist requesting you to get an assessment.
Yes.
How did you bring yourself to the assessment journey, and how has it been? Maybe you can share.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for starters, when the dentist, the pediatrician dentist, mentioned that she'd want an official diagnosis, so she would know how to handle him, because, and I think she said this because at some point they suspected he will need to go under. Like he will need to have, given that he will not open his mouth because of the sensitivity, they might have to do the correction procedures when he's under general anesthesia. So that is why she needed to have an official diagnosis before now she chats a way forward. So I ask her, remember, this is the second time I'm hearing about autism, and I ask her, so how should I proceed? So she tells me, number one, you need to go to a pediatric development specialist, so they can do the first assessment.
Okay.
And then from there, then now the developmental specialist will advise me on what the next steps should be.
Yes.
So this is where research comes in.
Wow.
So I went online and Googled
Yes.
autism specialists in Kenya, autism developmental specialist in Kenya.
Clearly, we didn't have Chat GPT then.
How to find how. Goodness,
find
what didn't I search for? So anyway, I finally got one. Actually, there were a couple. So I settled on one, and we went and we called in, booked an appointment, and we were given a date to go see them. So we went, and we spent 2 hours with her.
Wow.
As she interacted with him. They have, I think, a step-by-step process of how to evaluate.
Yeah.
So we stayed 2 hours, and afterwards, she's like, yeah, he's done. And the official diagnosis is that he has autism.
Okay.
And then she even told me he is in level 2.
Okay.
So autism, I know nowadays it is said don't level them, like don't
They
put them in that.
discourage-
Yes, they discourage
leveling. Yeah.
Yes, but then she told me that my son is in level 2, so there are 3 levels.
Okay.
There's level 1, which is high. They're called high functioning.
Yes.
You'll actually not tell a child is autistic. And then there's level 2, where now my son is, and you also can't tell, because you see, autism does not have a face.
Yes, it's actually an invisible, I would call it almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is why they are so misunderstood, because unlike conditions like Down syndrome,
Or in a wheelchair. Somebody with a wheelchair.
Yes.
It's a disability. You can clearly
Yes.
say my leg is.
Yes, even apart from the physical.
Yeah.
If we focus on neurological conditions,
Yes.
conditions like Down syndrome,
True.
they have a face,
Yes, true.
and it's universal. It's a
Yes.
universal race face,
Yeah.
regardless of the race.
Yes.
So Down syndrome children with Down syndrome, or even adults, they have a certain look that
Yes.
identifies them as being Down
Yes,
syndrome.
yes.
Another neurological condition, like say cerebral palsy,
Yes.
you can immediately tell that this child has cerebral palsy.
condition, yeah.
But with autism rarely has a face,
True.
unless now the individual has an underlying condition apart from autism that now makes them, that is easy to tell.
Yes.
That's when now you know this child has a condition. So anyway, going back, the doctor, the specialist told me he's autistic, and his level of autism is level 2, which means that unlike level 1, who need mild support here and there, or unlike level 3, which is extreme,
Yes.
my boy would need a lot of support.
Okay.
But there are things that he will learn with time and be able to live normal life with. Yes.
Yeah.
Additionally, she also told me that that he has ADHD. This is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Okay.
That means he's always on the move. His mind is not
He has
settled.
a lot of energy.
He has a lot of energy. Actually, to date, he
Yeah.
will only rest when he's sleeping.
Oh boy.
The rest of the day, he's pacing around, he's jumping around, and you wonder,
playing.
oh dear, he's playing, he's whatever it is he's doing, he's not silent. He will eat walking.
In fact, that's one of the ways you know that he's sick. When
Yes.
he's sick, you know he's completely
Yes, because
down.
now he will settle. Yes. But on a day-to-day, on a normal day,
Yeah.
he's all over. At times he's pacing, he's on the windows, he's jumping, he's
He's rocking the chair. I've
Yes.
seen in other countries, you would
Yes.
just see this kid rocking the chair
Yes,
or
yes.
jumping on the chair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Uh-huh.
yes. So she mentioned that he has autism, level 2, and ADHD.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay. So what is the next step? And then she says, if the doctor sent for an official diagnosis, you need to go a step further and see a pediatrician neurologist who will then now draft a report.
Okay.
Allow me to mention this.
Please do. Please do.
And this is something that has always been in mind, wondering how, you see, you and I will probably be able to cater for the cost of assessment. Just to mention, this assessment was 5,000 shillings.
And you're talking not recent, you're talking a few years ago.
My boy is 9, so this is
Thank
9
you.
years ago. I don't know
Imagine.
the current cost.
Yes.
So
yes.
this
How
is
many families in Kenya is the question we are raising?
Yes.
How many families in this economy can
Yes,
afford
correct.
that simple assessment? I'm not even talking about treatment, just the assessment.
Did I mention this
Please
is just
mention.
assessment?
Kindly.
So when I asked the doctor, so can I get a report that I'm going to go with me? And then she said, no. This cost is only for assessment. If you need me to do an official report, a written report, then you'll have to pay extra. You can imagine the shock.
Unbelievable.
You can imagine the shock.
Yes.
And this is just the first step. Remember, we later went to, she also recommended that we see a neurologist, a pediatrician neurologist.
And maybe a
she-
dentist.
And now this is from, we are doing this because of the dentist.
Yes.
But she also recommended for us to get a hearing test. Because like I said earlier, you will call a child with autism and they will ignore you. You even start wondering,
Are they deaf?
yes. Do
I
they
used to
have a
think the same
hearing
way.
problem?
Yes.
I don't know if you've gone through the same
Oh,
situation.
Jesus. Let me tell you something. I would leave the country, come back. Amani was still here in Kenya. I would come back. I've opened the door. When she was little, like maybe less than a year, when I would come in through the door downstairs, she would actually look at me and be very excited, very excited. But now I would come home. She's there in her corner watching TV, and sometimes she would block her ears. And I'm thinking, chick, you've not seen me for a week. Like I would, naturally as a mother, as a parent, you expect the kid to come to you. So at some point, just like you, it's I told you, it's like therapy for me, man. I would look at her and wonder, has my kid forgotten me? Secondly, I would think, does she have hearing problems? And, it's amazing. It's amazing how the journeys are similar, and so many parents don't talk about it because we don't have the channel. And I thank God, Eva, that this is Neuro Conversations, and that there's a window in the calendar where this condition is. We are trying to create awareness. You see, that's what World Autism Awareness is all about. Because imagine how many parents are dealing with this and they don't know. Because when you talk about assessment, for me, I'm thinking, how many of us parents are even in towns or counties where they don't even have the privilege of seeing this neuro,
The
specialist?
neurologist, yes.
Tell us about it.
Now, I mentioned about the hearing issue. So like I had mentioned earlier, when you're given, when the assessment is a different cost,
Wow.
the report is a different cost. Remember, after you're done, the developmental specialist will send you to a hearing specialist to go get tested.
Yes. But you still need the report written.
Yes, so I will pay for the report.
Oh, boy.
And then I will also go for the hearing test, which is also a cost.
Yes.
And then I'll also go to the neurologist, the pediatrician neurologist,
Yes.
who will now write the report that will now go to the dentist
Right.
so that they can know what treatment plan to put in place.
Yes.
So all these are costs. and we later got all this, and we took to the dentist, and the plan was made, and my boy was well at the end of the day. He went into surgery because at the end of the day he will not open his mouth for the doctor to work on him, so he had to go for surgery.
Yes.
Did I mention that everything I've gone through is not admissible in a public entity?
Can you imagine that? In Kenya.
Do you
At
know
least
what?
for Kenyans, we are
Yes.
talking,
Oh, yes.
by the way,
This
our
is in
viewers,
Kenyan
for the sake of
context.
our viewers,
Yes.
we are addressing this in the Kenyan,
Kenyan context,
I know
yes.
in other countries, different, maybe you have different centers and spaces,
Yes.
but we are very keen on the Kenyan space because you can imagine if you are a professional,
Yes.
I am a professional, and if two of us who, I mean, honestly, if both of us have gone through this experience, that should tell you chances of another parent going through it, as much as we are educated and are exposed and, have seen it all. If we have gone through these challenges, I can guarantee you there's another parent out there. And I get a lot of inquiries. Actually, God works in a very amazing ways, because one of the challenges I see is that we get so many inquiries. In my own box, when I talk about it, I get a lot of inquiries, and I'm glad that we can have this neuro space neuro conversations where parents can actually come and discuss and find solutions. Yes. And maybe also advice, because you can imagine the health space. We actually need a reform somewhere, because if you're going to 10 doctors for the same thing, and eventually we'll end up with a surgery for a kid who is even barely 2 years old. Can you imagine?
Let's say a kid under 5.
The cost.
Yes.
The cost is quite something.
It is.
And even getting these doctors, and I think at some point we will share information of all these doctors that have been that you can actually go to, because that's one of the questions I get every single day. Which doctor did your assessment? Who did not? And yeah, maybe you can speak to it.
Yes. So like you had mentioned on the costs, and so there's the aspect of costs with all these specialists that you're going to. There's the aspect of time. Remember, most of us are working. Yes. So what does that mean? You need to take time off. Yes. You need to take time off.
And when you go to a dentist, allow me to interject and say, when you go to a dentist, you, a normal child, can sit for 30 minutes and you're done, back to the office. Yes. I know many times you ask for a few hours off. Our kids, I've told you how many times we've been boxed, until one of the dentists in Upper Hill looked at me and like, "Ma'am, please leave her. Her teeth are just fine, leave her." But you can imagine for these autistic kids, because of sensory, it's not like they do this because they want to. It's just how God, their creation. It's part of their neurodevelopmental challenges, that they cannot sit still. You're there in the dentist's room for like 4 hours for a job that could have been done in 30 minutes.
True.
So maybe share.
And not only that, even when you go in, you don't just go in like an adult and sit on the table and then you are assessed. The child will go in, they'll need to scan the environment because their mind is working overtime, wondering, where am I?
Yes. Are they safe? Safety for them is an issue?
Yes.
Yes.
So they scan the environment, wondering, where am I? What am I doing here? And even maybe take some time off for the doctor to see them. Maybe as they're having, in between them dealing with other patients, they come talk to them, because they'll also not want a stranger touching them. Wow. So the doctor will come, say, hi, how are you, Ivan? And then go attend to another patient. Because the very first time he sat on the dentist chair, he didn't want to be touched. Wow. This is a total stranger. Why are you touching me? Yes. And there are children, the autistic children who cannot stand touch. Like, you will not touch them.
Oh,
and not just
sensory
children.
Integration.
Yes. Yeah. And not just children. Even adults to date, you'll find there are autistic adults who you cannot touch. Yeah. So like you said, 4 hours.
My God.
You go there, maybe
the
first
afternoon is gone.
Maybe even a whole day. Yes. Your money hours, which happen during the morning, they are gone. Because you have to go earlier, so that you also, because you're queuing, you're not the only patient for the day. Imagine. So you go in, maybe the first hour is for them to get acquainted with the environment. Yes. The second hour, maybe they need to go see, now I'm talking from experience, this is what happened with my son. Yes. The first hour, we have to walk through the hospital for them to see what it entails. Now, number 2, they have to go in, look at where they will be seated, and the doctor periodically coming out to them and saying hi. And remember, maybe even the procedure with other patients that the doctor is dealing with is not a 10-minute procedure. So they'll probably step out after an hour to see if my son is ready to go in, you know? So there's that aspect. Yes.
Yeah, and one of the things I know, we need to talk about is for us, even when you're going to the dentist or doctors, you have to prep the child. There might be nonverbal, because I can tell you for a fact, my daughter was nonverbal for, until like 6 years. She got her speech over over time she's gotten speech.
Yes.
But even when you're going to the dentist, I used to make these cards. Can you imagine? I mean, guys,
Cue
autism,
cards.
cue cards, where you're telling you go, clean teeth, simple words,
Yes.
short, simple words,
Yes.
clean teeth, you'll be going dentist, because even opening the mouth, for some of them is a problem.
Yes.
So I think our viewers, as you can see, the journey of autism is not always the easiest.
Yes.
And, maybe I would want you to share with us, and a lot of us parents, we go through the emotions of denial. I don't know if you can share, if you're comfortable sharing that with us. I know for me, it actually, to even think that my child has this condition. Now you go to Dr. Google. After Googling this condition and you realize what it entails, maybe share with us, walk us through your journey. Denial takes time. I mean, we know we have even parents, especially fathers and mothers, and even siblings and relatives. How has your journey of accepting this? Because you see, we are creating awareness so that the stigma is a lot in our community, ourselves, because we have, I mean, all parents, when you're giving birth to this child, I mean, God bless us with our kids, but all the times, I mean, all of us have goals. I mean, we want your kid
For
to
your
do
child,
this.
yes,
You have a goal for your
yes.
kid. You're not gonna just say, oh, it's okay, she cannot walk. You try to help them crawl, if it's with a chair, with a table. So just walk us through that journey. I know denial is a challenge for many of us. We've gone through the motions until now. You've come to a point where you're saying, okay, God, this is the condition. Now, how do I help my child?
You know, Maggie,
Yes,
normal parenting comes with a lot of emotions.
correct.
Emotions, be it fear of maybe whatever it is your child is going through, or even just day-to-day fears about, that is normal with any
Their
parent for their
milestones.
child.
Yes.
Yes. But now, just to be clear, the emotions the emotions that come after an official diagnosis, they are, I don't know what word to give them.
Yeah.
Because when I first got the report, I remember I took time off work to process it.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. You know, it's one thing to have intuition that there's something wrong with your child.
Yes.
And then it's another thing to see it written in paper and have a professional, a doctor who's gone to school for many years, confirm it to you.
Yes.
It is, the emotions are huge.
Yeah.
You go through, like you said, you go through denial.
Yes.
You go through conversations with myself and with God. I'm like, what did I do that was so bad
Yes.
for you to do this to my child? You know, for you to have my child go through this, you know? And and this is where support comes in, because for me, I have friends and relatives who I reached out just to rant, to just pour
To vent out.
to vent
Yeah.
and just pour it out there, because I am here wondering, fine, my child has challenges right now. How do we navigate it? Because even when you get the diagnosis, there's the aspect of the doctor mentions that the process is intense. This is hands-on.
Yes.
If you think parenting is hands-on,
Yeah, boy,
parenting
boy.
a child with autism is as hands-on as it
Triple,
gets.
100x.
Yes, you know. So you're told about the cost of therapy. You're told about diet. You're told about day-to-day living, how to handle them. You're even concerned about care because you're going to work and you have to leave your child with someone.
Yes.
Is this someone who
And
is
they are
capable?
nonverbal.
Yes.
A lot of times initially they are
Yes.
nonverbal.
Yes.
I'm sure
How do
your
they
son has
communicate?
spoken now,
Yes.
but by God's grace and a lot of
Yes, he
work.
has. Yes.
Yeah. But you're leaving your child, you're going to work or traveling like some of us, and you're leaving your child with somebody else and they cannot express how they feel. They're hungry, they are, their emotions, they are sick.
Yes.
Maybe.
So from the word go,
Yeah.
I'd say the emotions are big, and I don't know, different people go through different emotions. But for me, number one was denial. Until a friend of mine asked me, do you think these doctors who've had training, and remember your son is not the first to be given this diagnosis, they've gone through this training, so they know what it is they're talking about. So that also helped me to say, you know what, they know better than I do.
Yeah.
So there's no need to be in denial. Let me
Yeah.
just accept and
Yeah.
and see the way forward. Then there's also another emotion of fear.
Yes.
Fear of what it is you've been told, fear of the future, fear of so the additional cost that come with the condition. Like I said before, therapy,
Jesus,
food, caregiving when you're not around. And if you have a job where you travel, like I did,
Yes.
you're out of home for
Very
a couple of
demanding
days.
too,
Yes,
jobs, yeah?
yes.
Yeah.
Fear of school. How will he be handled at school?
Yeah.
And finally, fear of what will they become. Like, natural progression of parenting. You know that you're going to raise your child until they're a certain age, and then they move
They're
out.
independent,
They
yes.
become independent. So there's that fear of, will my child ever become dependent?
Yes.
And like you said, if
Live
they're
without me.
yes.
Yes.
And the fear of, if I'm not there, if today something happens to me, what happens to my child?
Wow.
Eh?
Yes.
Will the people closest to me be able to
Understand him.
understanding and be able to handle him the same way I handle him?
Wow.
There's so much that is going through
It's
your
a roller
mind.
coaster of emotions.
It is a roller coaster of
Yes.
emotions. There's so much that is going through your mind. You even have to just sit down and break it down. And when you think about it collectively, it is too much.
Yes.
So you have to sit down and break it down and decide the next steps first and what follows after that. Because if you sit and start thinking about how to approach the whole thing,
It can be overwhelming.
it is very overwhelming.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Oh, like
So
you said,
those are the emotions that you go through, and I'm sure you've gone through the same.
Oh boy. I told you, Eva, this is like you giving me therapy free of charge.
Yes.
And I'm sure our viewers, I think you can put your comments down below because we would love to hear what your experiences have been. To be honest, this is the reason, this is why these neuro conversations were very important to start. Because you can imagine, Eva, you're giving me therapy right here. Just the few minutes I've spoken to you. What about other parents? What do they go through? And actually in Kenya, I realized we don't have this kind of conversations going on. And even where they are there, let's say maybe in a WhatsApp group, sometimes we don't get that opportunity to talk because we are quite a number. So we are hoping that this can be one of the outcome. We can have as many parents come and share their stories. We can have even, like the doctors who diagnosed your kid. And even I think a lot of times we need to celebrate the people who've walked the journey with us. Because I can tell you, in your denial story, myself, my daughter was also misdiagnosed. She had a middle ear surgery, which later on when I went to a specialist, we realized that I was the only one in the country. I realized that she actually never needed this. If I knew she was autistic that time, I would probably have sorted that, because we trust professionals. And a lot of misdiagnoses, I'm finding from interviewing a lot of parents, I'm finding that in Kenya there's a lot of misdiagnoses, especially because even you as a parent, you don't know what autism is. You don't know what, you're also desperate. Like I can tell you, the first instinct that came to me was my daughter must be having ear issues.
This is after the doctor mentioned
This is
it?
way before.
Your intuition.
Because her blocking, the rate at which she would block her ears was alarming. I mean, a cartoon she liked for a very long time, all of a sudden now she's blocking her ears. And when I'm trying, no eye contact, many things. So I thank God that you can share your story. Did you go through the whole guilt as a parent, and especially as mothers? Because, you know, you carried this baby for 9 good months, did everything you had to do. Some of us walking and doing all manner of exercises to make sure that the kid came out right, okay, eating healthy. So what would maybe you can share some of your journey on, did you ever feel guilty? Because also the society, there are certain myths out here where people tell you, oh, maybe you didn't eat the right things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also that. So I definitely went through guilt, majorly because medically, I go through a different type of pregnancy. I get a condition called hyperemesis. With hyperemesis, you throw up from the first day to the last day. Like for me, I threw up from the first day to the last day. So nutrition was an issue. So I definitely went through that stage.
And this is your second child.
Yes, and I go through that with all my pregnancies. So there's that moment, and remember, grief is at different levels.
Yes.
So guilt.
Yeah.
So I went through guilt because I kept thinking, maybe this is my doing. Had I managed the hyperemesis better, I would have had better nutrition.
Wow.
And I would have been, my child would have gotten all the nutrients they need for them not to be autistic. And remember, even as you go through this guilt, there's still not one like scientists have not like pointed out one single cause
Yes, you're right.
of autism.
They're actually still researching.
Yes, but the guilt is inevitable.
Yes.
I also went through the guilt of, is it something I did during birth? You know, did something happen to him? Would I have done something better?
Yes.
And just to build up on this, there's a guilt that you yourself have,
Yes.
and then there's a guilt that society or even friends or even family members or even the general public puts on you.
Yes, correct.
I remember one time when we went, when we were waiting to go into the doctors for an assessment, there's a lady who sat next to me. She was of Somali origin, and she was all covered up. I can't tell you even to date what she looked like. But I remember we were seated there, small talk, and then she asked me, please tell me what it is that you do for your son to talk. What did you do? Now this is like, my son was around 4 years old. What did you do to get your son talking? And I told her, there's nothing particular I did. It's just progression and maybe therapy that we've been going through, yes. And then I asked her, why do you ask? And then she said, you see, my son is nonverbal. In fact, all he could do was hum as he was steaming. So he was steaming and then he was humming. So I asked her, I tell her, it's going to come. Yes. The speech will come. It's only a matter of time. Maybe it also takes therapy.
And thanks for encouraging her.
Yes.
Because we need this.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
And then she came out and said, I wish it would happen now because I feel so bad. And I tell her, that is normal to have a form of guilt. And then she goes like, but you see, this guilt is not from me. I have a mother-in-law who keeps telling me I am the cause of my son having this condition. And then I ask her, how is this so? Because you have no control. And then she goes like, what haven't I been accused of? I was told I was drinking when I was pregnant. Her mother-in-law even accused her of wanting to procure an abortion, and that is why things went wrong with the child. She's been accused of doing drugs. She's been accused of not eating healthy. She's been accused even of witchcraft.
What?
So there is a guilt
society.
you carry, you as a mother, not knowing what it is that you did to get your child to be in this condition. And then there's also the guilt that the society puts on you.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is unnecessary.
It is unnecessary. It is so unfounded. you know.
Yeah.
So for the community out there, please do not think that there's something a mother did for their child to be autistic.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there's nothing they did.
Correct.
Fortunately or unfortunately, there's nothing they
Correct.
did.
Correct.
Yes, and
Yeah.
no one chooses for their child to be autistic.
And nobody, actually, I want to emphasize on that point. Nobody, no woman, no, no human being in their right mind, you would carry a child 9 months and do any harm to them or do something that would cause harm. I've not seen any. And speaking of World Autism Awareness Month, this is why I believe that this condition has become very prevalent. And if you look at the US, 1 out of 31 kids will have this condition. In Kenya, 1 out of 24. So really, and research is still ongoing, but I feel like it's so evil and so wrong for anybody to actually blame a mother. And I've also seen in families, you find that maybe the husband will start blaming the wife.
Oh, yes.
Or the wife will say, this came from your side.
From your side of the family.
Yes. Others will start saying, oh, this came from your side. You have this kind of generic inheritance. It is quite wrong, and I'm glad that you shared your story.
It is very wrong, yes.
Yeah, your lived experience. What would your advice be to a parent who is in those early stages, the motions of, the first signs of this autism?
For me, I'd say, that intuition, trust it. Wow. There's a talk of, boys are slow, or there's a talk of,
which is quite
girls
unfair.
do this and this. Yeah. At times it is based, it's probably true when it comes to some things, but when you notice that there's something extra, please trust your intuition. Wow. It is 80-90% most of the time true. Wow. Plus, I believe all of us grew up in an environment where there are other children. Yes. And we are still the same species after all. Yes. So, and it's not every day that you see every child having sensitivity with brushing. In fact, from an early age, you'll see children looking for toothbrush, you know.
Even taking yours.
Yes, even taking yours, wanting to brush. It's not every day that you see a child has sensitivity when it comes to cutting their hair or when it comes to cutting their nails. Yes. It is not every day that your for lack of a better word, a normal child will be delayed in potty training. Yes. So there are those stages that a child will go through. Yes. So the moment you realize that your child, your daughter or your son is diverting from that, please trust your intuition. Yes. Look it up. Yes. Be curious to know, is this normal? Yes, and your curiosity will pay. Yeah. The reason I'm saying this is because the longer it takes for you to get a diagnosis, the longer it takes for you to also start intervention. Yes. And when it comes to autism, earliest intervention is the best. Yes. The earlier you start,
you can
the
say
best.
That again.
Yes.
You can say that again.
Yes. For my advice to parents who've just received that diagnosis, I'd say take time to process it.
Please look into the camera and give them another word, because we've been there. Yes. We have been there. It's quite a journey, to be honest. It's not easy. We're not going to promise you it's easy. Yes. But I can promise you that there's help. Eva is a you have a lived experience. I have my fair share of experience.
Yes.
There's help, but it's not going to be easy, parents. Yes. But we have to be there for our kids. True. Yeah.
So for the parent who's just received that official diagnosis, yes, all I can say is it is well. It is going to be well. And I know this might sound cliche, but to be very honest, we've gone through that. We experienced the emotions. So take it a step at a time. It is going to be well. It is going to be well. You, if need be, go through the emotions. If need be, find that support system that you will need to help you process these emotions, and to help you chart the way forward. Yes. Because, like I said, there are also parents. Okay, fine. Delayed diagnosis delays intervention, but there are also parents who get the diagnosis and they do not start intervention immediately.
yes.
And by intervention, I'm talking about therapy.
And therapy and
Yes,
diet.
and diet, you know. So even for those parents who have their diagnosis and they're thinking, where do I start? Number one, you can reach out to us. We'll
Yes.
help you through the process.
Yes.
And number two, it is going to be well. And work as fast as you can to accept it, to go past the denial stage, and now see how you can start the process of intervention and getting your child therapy, depending with the stage they are. And like I said earlier, it is well. It is going to be well.
Yes.
We are, like Maggie said, we are lived through the process. We are not the only parents who've gone through it.
Yes.
There are so many parents who've gone through it. And I'm sure most of them, some of them who even have adult children to date,
Yes.
some who were even going through this process when there was no internet.
My God,
there was no
yes.
intervention to
Yeah.
this level.
Yeah, I have teenage
is well.
girls who
Yes.
are, one is actually, I think we'll bring her to the show, who is a teenager,
Yes.
living with, actually studying in Strathmore University, one of the universities here in Kenya. And, you know, it's a new phenomenon, let's be honest. Even myself, I mean, giving birth, I never thought there would be such a condition in Kenya. And I think the more we come together, the more we talk about it, the more we are able to find solutions and help each other live, you know, and our kids. Eva, thank you so much for coming to the show. I'm very honored to actually start the journey. You know, now our kids are getting to be older, and I'm sure there are still things we need to learn as parents. So thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And it's always a pleasure being in spaces where you get to speak about the journey, because like we said, there are parents who've gone through it, there are parents who are going through it now, and there are parents who will start this journey in the future. And it's always good
True.
for them to find a space where they're able to express themselves
Yes.
and find support.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And for me, I'm very grateful for this, having these new raw conversations. And I want to urge all the caregivers, anyone that handles kids with autism, that just to remind you that these kids, they were created by the same God who created us, beautiful, like the Bible says, uniquely and wonderfully made. And for me, all I ask is that you reasonably accommodate our kids. They're as innocent, because if you start now judging how we give birth and all those things, it doesn't add value to them, because they're innocent babies. So for me, it's just to love on them, care for them. Amani can tell you, as her mom, I have serious goals for her. So I'm always pushing her, do this. You can read better. You can write better. You can focus better. Stay still. But the least we can do for these kids, honestly, they matter. And if I can also add something, in the globe, when I travel the world, I've realized there are certain people who are living with this condition. I'm sure you guys can do your own research. The high-functioning autistic kids, and even the different spectrums, you realize that some of them are very madly gifted. Madly, I mean so gifted. Some of these guys are the innovators of modern day, living. Some of them are taking us to the moon. And why not include them? So for me, it's just a rallying call to include our kids, walk the journey with us. And as caregivers and parents, let's not give up. Let's not give up on our kids. Yes, for example, Amani is talking now, but your son might be talking now, but for sure, he never started talking.
He didn't start off there.
Talking.
Yes, he was nonverbal.
He's come a long way, to be honest. So parents, don't give up and reach out to us. There's help. Yeah. And even to the policymakers out here, we are asking that you try to understand this condition, so that together we can come up with a solution to make life easier for our kids, and even to make medical, assessment more reasonable.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
more reasonable. And to the school systems, my God, stop chasing these kids away. They need an education facility where they're reasonably accommodated. So God bless you guys. See you soon. And please drop a comment. Tell us where you're listening from. And let's keep talking. All right. God bless.